The year was 1942, and the world was a powder keg of paranoia and steel. Only months after the devastating surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, the American West Coast was a landscape of darkened windows, jittery nerves, and a constant, haunting gaze toward the Pacific horizon. It was against this backdrop of wartime hysteria that one of the most baffling and enduring mysteries in the history of aerial warfare unfolded over the city of Los Angeles. Even today, decades after the smoke has cleared and the radar screens have been deactivated, the events of February 24th and 25th remain a chilling enigma that defies simple explanation. To understand the gravity of what happened, one must first inhabit the mindset of a nation that felt suddenly and terrifyingly vulnerable, where every passing cloud could be a Japanese Zero and every shadow on the waves could be the periscope of an Imperial submarine. This was not just a city at war, it was a city waiting for the inevitable blow to fall, and when the air raid sirens finally began their mournful wail into the cool California night, millions of citizens believed that the nightmare had finally arrived at their doorstep. As the clock ticked past midnight on February 25th, the silence of the blackout was shattered by the frantic roar of sirens that signaled an immediate and terrifying threat from the sky. Searchlights, dozens of them, suddenly stabbed into the darkness, their brilliant beams converging on a mysterious object that appeared to be hovering or drifting slowly over the coast. For the thousands of soldiers manned at anti-aircraft batteries and the countless civilians watching from their porches, the sight was surreal. High above the city, illuminated by the intersecting glare of the lights, sat a shape that many described as a large, disc-like craft, seemingly unaffected by the chaos erupting below. It was then that the 37th Coast Artillery Brigade began its thunderous response, launching a massive barrage of nearly 1,500 rounds of anti-aircraft shells into the sky. The noise was deafening, a relentless pounding that shook the foundations of Hollywood homes and lit the sky with a strobe-like effect of orange and white explosions. Yet, despite the sheer volume of firepower directed at the stationary or slow-moving target, nothing fell. No planes were spiraling in flames toward the ocean, no debris was recovered from the streets, and the object simply continued its silent journey through a hellstorm of shrapnel as if it were moving through a different dimension entirely. The confusion in the streets was mirrored by the chaos in the command centers, where conflicting reports painted a picture of a full-scale invasion that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Initial reports from the 4th Interceptor Command claimed that as many as 25 enemy aircraft were detected over the city, while other observers insisted they saw nothing but the frantic reflections of the searchlights hitting the smoke from the anti-aircraft fire. In the cold light of the following day, the official explanations began to crumble under the weight of public scrutiny. Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox quickly dismissed the entire incident as a false alarm caused by war nerves, a statement that was met with immediate and fierce backlash from a public that had spent the night watching the sky explode. If it was a false alarm, the people asked, why were so many rounds fired? Why did the searchlights track a specific, physical object for over an hour? The Army, perhaps embarrassed by the Navy's dismissal, countered with a report suggesting that as many as 5 unidentified aircraft had indeed been present, possibly commercial planes operated from secret fields in Mexico or launched from Japanese submarines to test American defenses. As the years turned into decades, the Battle of Los Angeles evolved from a wartime blunder into a cornerstone of modern ufology, fueled by a single, haunting photograph published in the Los Angeles Times. The image, heavily retouched for clarity as was the custom of the era, shows a cluster of searchlight beams focusing on a small, glowing shape that bears a striking resemblance to the classic, flying saucer, that would dominate the cultural imagination in the late 1940s and 50s. While skeptics argue that the object in the photo is nothing more than the center of a smoke cloud illuminated by the lights, witnesses who were there that night tell a much different story. Men like Clarence Marsh and others who served in the Coastal Defense Unit spoke of an object that was impervious to their guns, a craft that could hover and then accelerate with a speed that defied the physics of the time. They described a metallic sheen and a sense of intelligent control that could not be attributed to a stray weather balloon or a Japanese scout plane. The military's later admission in the 1980s that the incident was likely caused by a lost meteorological balloon did little to silence those who remembered the sheer scale of the engagement and the eerie composure of the target. To truly grasp the mystery, one must look at the physical toll of the night, which was far from non-existent despite the lack of enemy wreckage. 3 civilians were killed by car accidents in the chaotic blackout, and 2 more died of heart attacks brought on by the stress of the bombardment. Buildings and vehicles throughout the city were damaged by the falling shrapnel of our own anti-aircraft shells, reminding everyone that even a ghost war has very real casualties. This event highlights a peculiar intersection of military history and the unexplained, where the fog of war becomes so thick that it allows for the possibility of something truly otherworldly. Was it a coordinated psychological operation by the Japanese, a massive mass hallucination fueled by the trauma of Pearl Harbor, or did a craft from another world choose that specific moment of human instability to observe our defenses? The silence from the government in the decades following, characterized by redacted files and shifting stories, only deepens the suspicion that something was recovered or witnessed that the public was never meant to know. Even now, as we analyze the radar technology of 1942 and the limitations of the projectiles used, the math doesn't quite add up. A weather balloon, even one carrying a radar reflector, would have been shredded within seconds by the sheer density of the shrapnel in the air that night. Furthermore, the way the object moved, drifting from Santa Monica toward Long Beach and then disappearing, suggests a level of propulsion that simply didn't exist in the inventories of any nation on Earth during World War II. We are left with a series of questions that may never be answered. Why did the Air Force not scramble its own fighters to intercept the craft? Some say they did, but were ordered to stand down when it became clear their weapons were useless. Others suggest that the planes seen were actually a secret American project that went wrong, though no records of such a craft have ever surfaced. The Battle of Los Angeles remains the ultimate cold case of the Pacific Theater, a night when a city of millions went to war with a target that refused to fight back, leaving behind only spent shell casings, broken glass, and a mystery that continues to haunt the skies above the City of Angels.